Hello guys. So, now that today we got, now we finally got all the next generation systems announced. The Wii U's out already. You got the PlayStation 4, already announced, and now the Xbox One. It made me go back and think, what are my most memorable system reveals of all time? And I don't necessarily mean like at E3 or, it could be in a magazine, because a lot of the older systems were only revealed through magazines. And so this is an open tag to anybody. What is your most memorable system reveals memories for you? It could be more than one. For me, actually, I couldn't say that like the Nintendo because I wasn't expecting that system to come out. I mean, the 2600 happened, and, things afterwards. Then there was the video game crash, and I wasn't expecting anything at the front. And all of a sudden, I saw a commercial of the NES, and I wanted it. For me, the first system reveal that I was really excited for, or that I heard about in magazines before it was actually revealed, was the Super Nintendo. Because, of course, at the time, everybody was playing Nintendo. When you're at school with the guys, or any kids, if you brought up the Nintendo, you had that common bond because everybody was playing Nintendo. You may not have been playing necessarily the same game, but you were all playing the Nintendo Entertainment System. Or kids didn't have it, wanted to hear about it. So, but when they unveiled the Super Nintendo, I was blown away because I thought the system looked different and looked cool because it was much different than the box of the NES. And to see Super Mario World, I mean, just the graphics were so much better. And one of the things back then that you don't have now is there was a major graphical leap, 8, 16, 32-bit, that now we're getting the blurry line on, where things, even though they're jumping up, you just aren't seeing it as easy. Your eye can't see the big changes anymore. And the Super Nintendo, just completely blew me away. I wanted that system the minute I saw it. I harped on my parents how much I wanted that to reveal. And again, lucky for me, that first Christmas after I saw it, I luckily got it. Now, my second most memorable system reveal has to be the N64. Because, again, I love the NES. I love the Super Nintendo. Even though at this point, I did have a Genesis. And I did like the Genesis too. That generation, I loved both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. I may have started as a Nintendo fanboy, but by the end, I loved both systems. And so when they announced, and for some reason back then, the N64, it seemed to be like talked about, not necessarily the name, but the system for a long time in magazines before it was finally unveiled. You're like, come on already. Of course, when you're younger, you want the new generation. You want the new greatest thing. And when they finally unveiled the N64, the black design, you're just like, that looks cool. And then you saw the pictures, of course, Mario 64, and you were blown away. You're like, wow, look at those. I can't believe they did 3D. And at the time when I played Super Mario 64, it seemed like the perfect 3D game that I couldn't imagine anybody getting a 3D game more perfect than that game at the time. You had Pilot Wings and other, Super Nintendo N64, and Pilot Wings and Wave Race and other games that did show stuff off, but for some reason for me, Mario was always the game that stuck with me every time they made a leap. Now, the controller I wasn't kind of skeptical on, but again, I learned to use the controller rather quickly, even though now you look at the controller, you go, that may not have been necessarily the best design choice. But at the time, as a kid, you learned to adapt to any controller. You played that game until you learned to play it right. And when you get past that point, I did have like letdowns. To me, actually, after Sega Genesis, the Saturn was a letdown. And I know a lot of people love the Saturn, but at the time, reading the magazines, how that system was designed on the inside wasn't designed, so properly. And then, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the games that came out in my area to rent and stuff, but the games that were coming out weren't. It almost like, my video store, it was like what made the Genesis so popular was, okay, you had the platformers, but you had the RPGs and the sports games are what made, for the most part, the Genesis popular at the time. And it almost didn't seem like, at least from my rental store at the time, like those games, they were carrying that over. Of course, later I loved the Dreamcast. And the only other system, to be honest with you, after that, well, there's two systems, but the one system that I got really excited after the Nintendo 64 was the PlayStation 2. Again, PlayStation 1, when it first came out, I was very resistant to it because Sony was a big company. I didn't like the fact a big company was coming into the video game market. I didn't like they were going to bring big company, tactics and rules into this, and that they weren't going to be in for the love of the gamer. They're going to be in for the love of just another business to them. But Sony won me over. And so when the PlayStation 2 was rumored and it's going to have backward compatibility, I was so excited. And that was a reveal that did not disappoint me. I loved the design of the PlayStation 2 at the time, and just the games, and that they could play my PlayStation 1 games. All I actually at that time, the only thing I needed to hear was PlayStation 2 was going to play PlayStation 1. That's all I needed, because I loved the PlayStation 1 games, and I was hooked to get a play. At that point, everybody I knew, no matter where you went to, no matter who I worked with, if you bought up PlayStation, they were so excited for PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. The same thing happened from 2 to 3 before they unveiled it in the price. Once they unveiled the price, a lot of people, including myself, were like, I'm not spending that much for a video game system. And it took many years for me to finally get a PlayStation 3, to be honest with you, because I was so mad at Sony for making that price so high out of most people's hands to get. Then 3DS was probably the last one I'd say that actually, met my expectations. I was hoping that they would go, closer to today's graphic in the handheld. I really didn't care about the 3D so much. And when I got it, played Mario Kart 7, it did not disappoint me at all. And so those were my memorable system reveals. So guys, I would love to hear your video responses, your comments below. What is your most memorable system reveal? And I will talk to you guys for another video tomorrow. Talk to you later. Bye.